the care, supervision, and rehabilitation, if needed, of another individual called a ward.
The guardian has to be extremely careful to read their letters of authority and the order appointing them and stay within the scope of that authority.
If your letters of guardianship say you are a full guardian, that means you can make almost every decision the ward could have made before the guardianship.
Making sure that they have proper placement, making sure that they have proper medical attention and care, making sure that they have everything from socks and underwear. That's the role of the guardian. Everything that happens to that person who's under guardianship is ultimately my responsibility.
But if a guardianship is a limited guardianship, then it's limited to the scope of powers that the court has authorized for that person.
Choosing where the ward will live is often one of the first and most difficult decisions.
Okay. Well, you visit a lot of places and you try. In my case, it was unbelievably important for me to have him where I could get to him every single week.
As guardian, even though we have the power to make any and all decisions for that person, we're also taught and instructed that we need to keep in mind the best interests of the ward, but also what their wishes are.
Julie's ward, Marjorie, was living with her son before Julie moved her to a private pay nursing home.
I usually use the standard of safety. Safety has to be first. And by safety I mean such things as just whether or not the environment is conducive to someone who may be in a walker or a wheelchair.
Ernest is guardian for Joe.
What's in the best interest of your client? You know, you want to be on the bus route with a home that does not match, or do you want to be in a home that does match and maybe you don't have the transportation, but you have a better chance of success?
You must let the court know of any change in your ward's address and notify the court and other interested persons of a change in your own address. You have a legal duty to visit the ward at least once every 3 months. In practice, though, more frequent contact is recommended.
Ken's not here today, but he'll come next time. They need more attention. They need to be told every week, if possible, that there's somebody out there that's still part of the family that cares whether they're alive or dead. And it's going to make a difference in how quickly they deteriorate.
You need to be visible at the nursing homes. You need to talk to the nurses. You need to talk to the aides, establish relationships with those people. You want the people that are working in those facilities to know you're going to be back, and it may be tomorrow, it may even be later this afternoon.
As guardian, you should try to make those decisions that will require the least amount of change in the life of the ward. Dawn goes several times a week to the supported independent living residence of her brother, Bruce. She values his ability for self-determination.
Again, I have to remember improving his life is what he wants his life to be, not what I want his life to be. So I have to accept the fact that he's only going to do what he wants to do, and my goal then in improving his life is improving his life to his own satisfaction, helping him meet his own goals, not my goals for him.
If you know what your ward would prefer, so long as the preference does not jeopardize the ward's well-being, then that's the decision you should make, even if it might be different than what you would decide for yourself under the circumstances. With medical decisions, a second medical opinion may be helpful.
Some of them aren't end of life, but they certainly are irreversible decisions that we make, amputations. Those are hard decisions to make for somebody else. They'd be hard decisions to make for myself.
If legal documents are in effect that give someone else the right and duty to make medical decisions for your ward, that person must make the decision, not you. As guardian, you are responsible for coordinating the ward's care and supervision.
In my brother's case, he has a case manager, he has chore providers, he has the dialysis staff, he has a counselor that he sees. He has other medical doctors, and yesterday we went to a psychiatrist to take a look if there's a medication that might help him organize his thoughts better. All of those people need to be coordinated. It's not a given that they communicate with each other so they know what's going on. I think working and keeping the care coordinated is a very big responsibility of a guardian.
Each year, you must fill out a report on your ward's condition, file the report with the court, and send copies to other interested persons.
In other words, what has been going on this past year, whether he's been hospitalized, whether he's going to see a doctor, whether he's seeing a social worker, whether he's receiving counseling, things like that.
Be organized, keep notes. I carry around a little black book, and every time I go to visit a ward, I document right in that book who I talked to, what we talked about, any concerns that somebody at the facility might have had, or any concerns that the ward brings up. Keeping records is probably the most important thing in this job.
You must take reasonable steps to restore the individual to the best possible state of mental and physical well-being.
Bruce's medical is not the only thing improved. He had a goal of completing his high school diploma. He did that within the first year with my help.
16 years ago, Jackie's son Brett was seriously injured in an auto accident.
2 years into the accident, we did something called a coma stimulation program for him, where it dealt with his taste and his hearing and visual type of things that stimulated him to get his brain to work, and communicates by blinking for yes and kicking for no, or if he's hurt, he'll go, you know, or he'll cough if you're in his view of watching TV.
My goal is to better my life if I'm going to start getting back in the community.
Success is very, very difficult to identify, but basically what it involves is to the point where the individual becomes his own person and he's ready to be on his own. That's success.
You are not expected to use your own money for the ward's care. If no conservator has been appointed, you may apply as representative payee to receive any government benefits due your ward and use them to pay for the ward's support, care, and education.
Social Security does a mini investigation as to who you are and whether you qualify to be that individual's payee, and then you become responsible for getting his money from the federal government and dispersing it for placement, for food, things like that. And you have to be held accountable for it. Every year we file a report with Social Security saying what happened with his money.
You may also be required to file accounts with the court. As guardian, you are required to find and apply for programs and services that the ward may be entitled to.
Services and things that an 18-year-old might need is very different from somebody who's 93 and trying to still live in their own home. The area on aging, in Kent County it's called Gerontology Network Service. Your local community mental health board is another good place that you could go to. United Way would be able to tell folks what resources might be available.
The court has a lot of information. There's crisis centers that have information. There's just unlimited resource available, but those all need to take time to investigate because there isn't any one person that knows everything that's available.
I guess being resourceful is another good thing to be when you're going to act as a guardian for someone. You have to not be afraid to just start making phone calls. And it may be frustrating, but eventually you get to where you need to be.
I guess I would just say take your duties very seriously. You have the life and the quality of life of your ward in your hands. You need to make sure that you're making decisions that are in keeping with that person's wishes, that what you know about their lifestyle, and make decisions from their shoes, not from your own shoes. You have to honor that.